Lead me, guide me along the way. Lord, if you lead me, I cannot stray. Lord, let me walk each day with thee. Lead me, oh Lord, lead me.
Fam, welcome to the 5 W's that you need in less than 10 minutes extended. Now, you know why we got less than 10 minutes extended, because we never know how this is going to go. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. Please bring your tablet, your Bible, or your phone. Now we are on chapter 14. Now, if you are new with me, we are doing a chapter a week. We're now in chapter 14. I apologize. I have not been here in 2 weeks, but I've been really, really busy. I'm always trying to juggle a couple of things at one time. I'm between me reading a Bible, trying to bring Genesis to you and to myself every week. I'm in Proverbs right now because my pastor has instructed me to be into Proverbs. So I'm making sure that I do that. And then I'm also doing my own little stuff on the side. So forgive me, I get really, really busy. All right. I get busy. All right. So first things first, let's go ahead. I always like to do a narration. And then after their narration, I go over the previous chapter, which is chapter 13, and then we'll get into the meat of chapter 14. Now, let's find some music. I always like to have us some little music, something that just gets us in the tranquil mood. All right, I hope this works. I hope this sounds good, y'all. Okay? Ooh. He could have said, "That's not my problem anymore." Lot had chosen his land. He had pitched a tent toward Sodom. Lot made his decision. But when Abraham heard his nephew had been taken captive, something rose up in him. Not pride, not revenge, but responsibility. Now, y'all, Abram gathered up 318 men. Not an army, not a kingdom, just his household, meaning his family, his friends. Under the cover of night, Abram moves. This isn't about the land. It's about loyalty. It's about standing up when someone you love is in chains. Genesis 14 reminds us, faith isn't just about altars and promises. Sometimes it's about courage and action. And when the battle is over, Abram refuses the spoils. Because of the real victory was never about the money. All right. So that's where we're at. We are at chapter 14. So now before we go to chapter 14, let's do a quick little recap of chapter 13. Now, if you were here with me last, which was 2 weeks ago, I apologize. In chapter 13, that's when Abram and Lot had their herdsmen, all of their belongings, and their livestock and their silver and gold. And God told Abram to go. But then at that point, because they had so much stuff, they needed to split up. And Abram gave Lot the choice. Which way you want to go? You want to go left, you want to go right? And he gave Lot the choice. Lot picked which way he went. Abram picked which way he went. Because of the choice that Abram went, God blessed him even more. So that's what happened last week. So now, let's get into chapter 14. And let's talk about the who in chapter 14. All right? Now, who are all the people we're talking about in chapter 14? We're talking about Abram, now a leader, a warrior, and a rescuer. We're also talking about Lot, which is Abram's nephew. Now, remember, they chose which way they were going to go, and Lot chose to live closer to Sodom. So that's where Abram had to rescue him from. Now, when we're talking about chapter 14 is very, very extensive. So you're going to need to go in there and really read this. Because in chapter 14, we're also talking about the 4 eastern kings that were in the Mesopotamian area. And then we're talking about the 5 kings of the Jordan Valley. Now, when we talk about this, because like I told you, this is very, very extensive. You have to read your Bible when you come here because we only got 10 minutes. All right? Now, when he's referring to these kings, he's referring to like monarchs and rulers that were over these different regencies. All right? So that's what he's talking about. Now, let's talk about the what. What happened? Well, let me get my little notes out because I can tell you what happened. It was the War of Siddim. Now, these 4 powerful eastern kings defeated the 5 kings in Jordan Valley. All right? So, Sodom and Gomorrah was overrun. Lot is captured along with his possessions and the people. When Abram heard this, he said, nah, I'm not having this. I'm not going to let him be out there like that. So, Abram went and got 318 trained men from his household, and he pursued to go invade those kings, but he did it at night. So it was a nighttime. It was a sneaky link attack. And Abram defeated them and rescued Lot. I bet you Lot was very appreciative. Now, the king of Sodom was so loving and so kind to Abram because he did that he gave Abram money, gave him spoils. But this is what Abram did. Abram went right back and gave him the 10% of what he gave him and refused to take any reward. Just because it wasn't even about that. It was just about honoring family. That's all it was about. Now, when did this happen? Well, this happened during Abram's early years in Canaan. Remember, they decided which way they were going to go. Abram went closer to Canaan. Lot went closer to Sodom. And this was after the separation. All right, remember, this happened in chapter 13, the chapter we were just in. Now, before God formally seals the covenant in Genesis 15. Now, we haven't gotten there yet because he's going to be sealing the covenant then. So make sure you come back and make sure you're reading before you get here. Now, this is Abram's first recorded act as a military leader, going to save Lot. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Now, let's talk about the where. Where did this all happen? Well, once again, I told you, this was the War of Siddim. Now, this occurred in the valley of Siddim near the Dead Sea. Now, Abram pursued the kings as far as Dan and Habath, north of Damascus. He meets the king in the valley of Shavis. Okay, now the king is the king of Salem. There were so many kings. Listen, I'm gonna tell you guys something. I wrote so much information down, but I knew that we couldn't get through this just because it is 10 minutes, and I always want you guys to make sure you're reading along as well. But I am going to tell you, please make sure you read about each king, because you have your 4 kings in the eastern area, and then you have your 5 kings of the Jordan Valley. And those are the ones that they come and they have this war, which is the War of Siddim. Now, why did all this happen? This happened because loyalty matters. Because righteousness doesn't ignore injustice. Because God was positioning Abram as more than a wanderer, but as a man of influence and integrity. So all of this, like I said, everything that God does is always a plan. God don't play when he do stuff. He knows what he does. It's just that we have to follow the plan. And I'm guilty. I try my best to honor and listen to everything that God tells me to. But guess what? I'm flesh and blood. And sometimes I get beyond myself and I don't listen. Okay? don't listen. I don't listen. But I'm getting a lot better at listening to what God is telling me. Now, this chapter shows us, y'all, that faith is not passive. It's not passive. You have to actively be having faith. And trust me, it's not easy. So trust me, I'm not here to tell you or bully you because I'm actively working on it all the time. Do I trust God? Yes. Do I get waverly sometimes? Yes. But I'm getting a lot better all the time. All right? Blessings does not remove responsibility. That means that God blessed Abram and he blessed Lot. Abram wasn't going to leave Lot out there. He wasn't going to have him just to be captured. Of course, God was going to have Abram go and pick up Lot. Of course. So we knew that wasn't going to happen. Come on. Now also too, power is the safest in the hands of someone who refuses corruption, which is who? Abram. And the most importantly, Abram chooses God's blessing over worldly reward. I bet you that's a page out of the book that any one of us could take out of. All right. So I did that under 11 minutes. So, listen, you guys, I'm going to tell you to go and read chapter 14 because chapter 14 it's a very, very extensive chapter. I didn't even know if I didn't even get to the meat of everything that was in here because when we talk about these four kings, they're very individualized, but because of time's sake, that's why I ask you to read before you get here, because it's really important that you do. But before you leave, please like, share, and subscribe. jollystudios@gmail.com, www.jollystudios.com. Now, please, if you got something out of this, put it down below. If there's something else that I need to be doing, put it down below. I am trying to get better and better at explaining these chapters. But guess what? I believe work and show yourself approved. That means keep on coming on here. Keep on working at it, moving at it, working hard at it. And guess what? Listen, I'm going to have it down. So it's going to be all good. So family, I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the ride with me. And I will speak with you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.